Second Chances. Chapter 3.
Staff Sergeant William Black had his orders to Karlsruhe, Germany. He had them for nearly a month. All the necessary paperwork was done to get his wife, Mary, and his 6-year-old daughter, Stella, to accompany him. It was a very warm day as he walked to the orderly room to get his clearance papers. As he entered the orderly room, the company clerk, Spec 5 David, Can-Do, Davis looked up.
Hey Bill, I've got your orders.
Bill smiled.
Can do. I've had my orders for a while.
Not these. Here.
And Can-Do handed Bill a set of orders. On the top was a reference to his transfer to Germany with the notation rescinded. The following paragraph read, assigned to the 1st Cavalry Division, Ben Hoa, RVN. Republic of Vietnam. Bill's heart sank. He had already survived one tour in Vietnam. As he read the orders for the 3rd time, he turned to the first sergeant.
Hey Top, look, these orders are no good. They're sending Platoon Sergeant Black to Vietnam, not Staff Sergeant Black.
Bill, you weren't supposed to find out until the evening formation, but I guess we had better tell you now.
The first sergeant stuck his head in the CO's office.
Captain, Bill Black is here, and he has seen the orders to Vietnam for a Platoon Sergeant Black.
The captain called Bill into his office.
Bill, I'm still going to give you your new stripes and formation this evening. But, I guess you need to know that your promotion to platoon sergeant is the reason for the change of orders.
But sir, what about Mary and Stella? I don't know where to take them. They can't stay here.
What about your family, Bill?
Sir, I don't have a family. I never knew my dad. My mom died when I was 7. Mom's family has never accepted me because I'm a bastard.
What about Mary's family?
I met Mary in the orphanage.
Well, we can try to get her into one of those old posts that the Army has opened up for dependents of the men in Vietnam.
I hear that Camp Robert, California has nice places for families.
That would be great, sir. What do I have to do?
Just a minute.
The captain yelled out.
Can do.
Can-Do poked his head in.
Yes, sir.
Find out what we have to do to get Bill's family into quarters at Camp Roberts.
Oh, that's easy. Bill, follow me.
Can-Do and Bill walked over to the division personnel office. Can-Do walked right to another Spec 5's desk and started talking.
Harry, somebody changed Bill's orders, and he has only a few days to get his stuff in order. He needs to get his family situated at Camp Roberts. Can-Do.
You bet. Give me a copy of your orders, Sarge. I'll take care of it right now. Come see me tomorrow.
Harry was better than his word. He got Bill's family quarters at Camp Roberts, had Bill's departure date changed, giving him another 2 weeks to settle his family, and changed his point of departure to Oakland Army Terminal. He also had contacted the transportation officer and got Bill's household goods routed to Camp Roberts, just in time. They had been on their way to Karlsruhe. Bill hugged Mary and Stella for a long time that evening. Mary cried off and on during the night, and Bill would just hold her close and try to reassure her. Stella understood only one thing: Daddy was going away for a while. The little family moved to Camp Roberts. When they arrived, they found their household goods waiting for them. They had been assigned quarters, and everything was ready. 2 weeks went by fast. Then Bill took his duffel bag one morning and boarded an army bus for Oakland. Mary and Stella stood on their little porch and waved until they could no longer see the bus. No sooner had they gone in when the doorbell rang. Mary opened the door to find 6 ladies outside, asking to come in.
We're just your neighbors. We saw your husband get on the bus, so we came over to help you get through these first few days with him gone.
One woman was looking out the window.
Creep patrol.
The ladies all stepped out onto the porch. Mary asked.
What's the creep patrol?
The woman who seemed to be in charge turned.
They're not really a creep patrol. It's the soldiers who have to come and tell one of the families that something has happened to their man.
Another woman added.
See, they've stopped in front of a set of quarters. There's a chaplain, a survivor assistance officer, and a driver. They try hard, but no one wants to see them.
A third lady said.
It's better than what the families got in World War II. Just a telegram. Yeah, then there were the sadists who sent fake telegrams. I guess the personal touch is better. If you get a telegram, it is fake. The Army always sends soldiers to notify the families.
They watched as the 2 officers went up the walk.
Oh Lord, it's Joan. Let's go, ladies. Grief Committee. Would you like to come?
They addressed Mary.
No. I'd better stay here with Stella. I'll get involved when I get my house straightened.
Life at Camp Roberts was as good as it was at Fort Hood. The PX and commissary were well stocked. There was an Army shuttle bus to take family members to and from the various facilities. There were clubs, theaters, a swimming pool, a gym, and many small groups to help support the families of the service people in Vietnam. Stella went to school several blocks away. She did well but usually hung back when it came to socializing. She was a very pretty girl but painfully shy and retiring. She did well in academic subjects but was always on the periphery when it came to sports or social events. Stella made 5 friends, 2 black girls, 2 Latino girls, and an Oriental girl. She remained shy and a little antisocial except for these friends. But it made little difference. The military-dependent children accepted such things, but the local civilian children were intolerant of minority races and those associated with them. Stella learned the lessons of loyalty, fairness, and friendship from her friends. She also learned to hate bigotry and intolerance. After 8 months came the time for R&R. The little family planned to spend their time together in Honolulu. The day before Mary and Stella were scheduled to fly to Honolulu, they were sitting in their living room looking out the window when Stella called out.
Creep Patrol.
The Army staff car rolled down the street and stopped across from their quarters. While they watched, the chaplain and the survivor assistance officer got out of the car, consulted their clipboard, and walked across the street. Mary's heart began to beat faster as the officers drew closer to their door. Stella began to cry as there came a knock on the door. Mary started to cry as she opened the door to admit the 2 officers. The chaplain took her hand, and she collapsed into a heap of pure misery. "Mrs. Black, we regret to inform you that Platoon Sergeant William Black has been declared missing in action," the young lieutenant, survivor assistance officer, said.
"I'm Lieutenant Billings, and I am here to help and advise you."
She found that as long as Bill was considered missing in action, she could continue to live there at Camp Roberts and continue to receive his allotment.
I will also be in contact with you regularly to make sure you're okay and keep you informed on everything we find out about your husband.
Mary put her arms around Stella and hugged her close. The officers left their calling cards, pamphlets, and forms and left. Mother and daughter just hugged for a long time. The grief committee came and ensured they had dinner and a little company for the night. The grief committee called the airline and got Mary a refund. One said,
At least there is still hope for you.
The time dragged by. Year after year and no news. Stella was now 12 years old when the Creep Patrol showed up again one day. They approached Mary and Stella's door. Stella opened the door and invited the 2 officers in.
"Mrs. Black, we have some news for you."
Mary held her breath and waited. Then the chaplain said,
"We have learned that Platoon Sergeant William Black has been a prisoner of war."
Mary and Stella grabbed each other and cried.
What will happen now?
The young officer who had been Lieutenant Billings, now Major Billings, smiled.
"He has been released into U.S. custody and will be coming home soon."
Stella cried. Stella cried.
When?
"I don't know. He will have to spend some time in the hospital. But he is alive and still has all his faculties, both arms and legs. He has lost a lot of weight, but he is okay. He will be assigned to the medical unit at Fort Ord. So you will be able to visit him anytime, and he will be allowed to come home on weekends as soon as the doctors give him a clean bill of health."
The 2 women cried for joy. They thanked the 2 officers and hugged both the chaplain and the major. Major Billings told them,
"I will let you know exactly when he will be coming home and where you can meet him."
Oh, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
When the grief committee found out the good news, they insisted that Mary and Stella go to the beauty parlor and go shopping for new outfits to look their very best for Bill. 2 days later, the phone rang, and Mary answered.
"Mrs. Black, your husband will arrive at Travis Air Base the day after tomorrow at about 3 in the afternoon. I'll be there to pick you and Stella up at 2 tomorrow. I have 3 other families to pick up, so I will have a bus. It will be a long drive, but I have arranged your rooms for tomorrow night."
The next day, the grief committee arrived early in the morning, set Mary and Stella's hair, saw they ate well, and helped them with their makeup and dresses. When the committee finished, Mary and Stella looked great and felt good. The day passed slowly, but 2 did come, and they boarded the bus with the other families and rode to Travis Air Force Base to meet their man. As the bus approached the air base, a crowd tried to block the road, throwing eggs and rotten food at the bus and screaming obscenities. Everyone on the bus began to cry. Who did these people think they were? They were traitors in the eyes of the family members. Stella was stunned. She couldn't believe people would hate them because they loved their returning soldiers.
I'll never allow anyone to mistreat my dad. Never.
The local sheriff cleared the road for the bus, and they went in and parked near the flight line.
Please, folks!
Major Billings shouted.
Don't let those crazies spoil today. If you follow me, you will be with the returnees soon.
Every wife, child, and husband waiting for their loved ones waited impatiently as the C-141 taxied to the terminal. They watched as the ground crew blocked the wheels and set up the ramp. Then, the door opened, and the soldiers began to walk off the aircraft. The band started to play, and the waiting crowd pressed forward, hoping. The returnees walked slowly, holding each other up and looking into the crowd. Suddenly, a woman cried out and broke away from the crowd to grab a limping Major. She covered his face with kisses and hugged him like there would be no tomorrow. Then another. A husband ran to help his limping wife. Mary strained to see. Then, a haggard face she knew so well appeared in the aircraft door. She and Stella ran out to hug their man, covering his face with kisses and tears of joy. There were many months of hospitalization and then many more months of recovery at home. It took Bill a long time to regain his physical strength and longer to relate to his wife and daughter. But with the help of good medical care, a loving wife and daughter, and one particular chaplain, he slowly returned to being the happy, loving husband and father that left them 6 years before. Stella hung close to her dad and mom, hoping and praying for that return to normalcy. One hot summer day, Bill came home excitedly and called his girls.
I've been released for duty, and I'm on the list for first sergeant.
Oh, Bill, that's wonderful.
Mary and Stella were happy and proud of their man. He looked at his women, and a tear rolled down his cheek.
Daddy, what the matter? Why are you crying?
I'm just so happy. I saw the look on your faces that kept me going in the Viet Cong prison camp.
What look, Bill?
I saw 3 things in your eyes: pride, happiness, and love for me. I have got to be the luckiest guy in the world right now.
Oh, Daddy. We do love you, and we are proud of you, and we are happy just to be together.
He hugged his girls.
Oh, by the way, we are going to Fort Hood again. I'm being assigned as first sergeant to my old division.
Later that day, Stella met her friends. They were all a little melancholy. Stella asked why everyone was looking so sad. One of her black friends said that they were being shipped out. Stella said she was, too.
We're going back to Fort Hood, Texas.
The other girls brightened. It was then that they discovered they were, all 6, moving to the same station. That news brightened their moods considerably.
So, we'll get together there.
When the blacks got to Fort Hood, Bill did a little checking around and found that 2 girls were daughters of senior officers and the other 3 were senior non-commissioned officers. So, as a consequence, all 6 families would be living within a few blocks of one another. Bill also found out that Stella's friends' fathers had been repatriated at the same time he was. He knew the fathers of all his daughter's best friends. So, all 6 families were in the same situation. This is what had drawn the 6 girls together so tightly. In their junior year in high school, all 6 girls got after-school jobs modeling in an upscale clothing store in the city. They kept this job all through their junior and senior years. Then, at graduation, Stella and 2 other girls were offered contracts by a prominent modeling agency from New York. It took Stella weeks to make up her mind. She finally decided to serve her country in uniform, like her dad. The Oriental girl, Yoko, decided to go with Stella. The 2 decided to accept the modeling job in New York. 2 girls stayed in Texas and continued to model in their store while attending college. Stella and Yoko joined the Air Force. It was a sad mother and proud father who saw Stella off. She was on her way. After Air Force basic training, the 2 girls were sent to Nellis Air Force Base to be trained as VIP crew members. They learned every aspect of their assignment, including how to pilot the aircraft in an emergency. After they completed their training, Yoko was transferred to Andrews Air Force Base near Washington, D.C. Stella, on the other hand, was transferred to the Groom Lake facility, Area 51. While at Area 51, Stella met Bobby Klein, a sergeant in an experimental fighter wing. They dated intermittently until Bobby told her he was being sent on temporary duty, TDY, to Afghanistan and Iraq. He wasn't sure how long he would be gone, but would she wait? The 2 sergeants pledged loyalty to one another. Again, a sad and lonely Sergeant Black saw Bobby off and walked back to her billets. One Monday morning, she found out they would be taking one of the civilian scientists to Washington, D.C. The next day, they would lay over at Andrews Air Base for a day and then bring the scientist and someone else back to Groom Lake. She called to find out if Yoko would be around then. When she talked to Yoko, she discovered her two friends in the modeling business would also be in Washington for a photo shoot. After landing at Andrews, Yoko picked her up, and they drove to watch the photo shoot, and then the four girls went out on the town. It was a joyous time, yet sad. The girls had grown apart. They had been separated for too many years, and the gulf was too wide to overcome. So, a very sad and lonely sergeant returned to Andrews Air Base that night. Late the next evening, the staff car that had taken the scientist away returned. The driver threw a duffel bag up to her and drove off. The scientist and a tall, attractive Army sergeant major boarded the aircraft. Stella looked at him rather surreptitiously and noted that he looked a lot like her dad. After they had landed at Area 51, as the passengers were leaving the aircraft, the sergeant major did something no one in the years she had been a flight attendant had ever done. He took her hand, smiled at her, and said, "Thank you, Sergeant Black, you made this an enjoyable flight." She felt a flutter and then noticed that the sergeant major didn't look at all like her father. As she was trying to sleep that night, the gulf that had grown between her and her friends weighed on her mind. So, she tried to think of Bobby, but the sergeant major's face kept popping up.